Hi and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Today we're going to talk about 12 essential pantry items, which goes directly to food security, self-reliance, and emergency preparedness. And so we're kind of unpacking our pantry a little bit to show you 12 essential items. These are all items that we have backups in our food storage for. So that's why they are essential. They're not just in our pantry, but they're in our pantry and also backed up in our food storage. So we will get to that in just a moment. These are not really in order of what I consider to be the most important. I consider all of these to be incredibly important. We're going to start with the ingredients for making bread. And so that would of course be flour. So right here I have pulled from our pantry flour and the wheat that I also grind into flour to use for bread making. So let's start with just the flour. I generally do not have intense brand loyalty on things. Sometimes I do, and this is a case where I do. I have intense brand loyalty for my flour, for King Arthur unbleached all-purpose flour. And since I have this intense brand loyalty, that is what I store for making bread. In my opinion, it makes the best bread I've ever made. And so if you have something like that, well, by all means, stay loyal to it and just figure out a way to store it. Now, the largest size packages that we can get here locally are 10-pound packages, and we do that occasionally. What I do to compensate for not buying this in bulk in 25-pound bags is we watch for sales. And Jim can often find this on sale for around $5 a bag. And that is about the same price that I would pay for a 25-pound bag of flour for around $25. Now, here is how I store it. In my pantry, I keep it in this little Cambro. This is a 6-quart container. And I don't vacuum pack this. I don't put an oxygen absorber in it. It just stays right in my baking center, which is right behind me. And then we buy it usually in 5-pound bags, sometimes the 10-pound bags. I have enough of this for making bread for a year. Well, you may want to know how I store that, and I will be happy to show you. First of all, a lot of people think that it is necessary to put a bag like this in the freezer and freeze it to kill the bugs that might be in here. If that's important to you, it won't hurt a thing, go ahead and do it. I don't do that. Rather, we store it in these little square buckets in the bag, which we have vacuum sealed. So because this is a paper package, and you can see the flour pops out when I press down on it because it is airy. It is porous, which means that when I vacuum seal this, the vacuum pulls from inside the flour bag to where this is just as hard as a rock. It has pulled the air out of the bag of flour, and then it is sealed inside this vacuum bag. And then we have 20 pounds stored in these buckets, and we have about 120 pounds of this out in our food storage. So that's what we do with the flour. I have red winter wheat and white winter wheat. And we get these in various places, always in bulk. I get them in 50-pound bags usually, and some of the stores where we shop, especially when we go up to Salt Lake City or down to Las Vegas, I can go in stores and buy them right there in the store in 50-pound bags. So then when we bring it home, I store it in these 5-gallon bags and or 5-gallon buckets. And then generally I will either do the dry ice method or a oxygen absorber method. I don't ever put things this big in the freezer to do anything. I don't use the freezer method anyway. Removing the oxygen does the same thing as putting it in the freezer. Removing the bugs need oxygen too, and so if you take all the oxygen out, you will kill all of the bugs. Now, when I bring a bucket like this in from the food storage, because I'm ready to replenish what I keep in my pantry, I will open it up, keep it in the house, and then I will just refill these as needed. And in between times, I do not vacuum seal. I do not put another oxygen absorber in. The bugs, if there were any once in there, are dead, and they're going to stay that way, so I'm not concerned about them getting buggy again. If you are, then you may want to put an oxygen absorber in between times. So when I bring a 5-gallon bucket in from our food storage, once I open it up, I do not retreat it at all. I just use it until it's gone by replenishing these. We go through it fast enough that it's not a concern. Number 2 item is yeast, and I, again, have a brand preference. This is SAF instant yeast in 1-pound packages. I buy this online through Amazon. You can just go to Amazon directly and look up SAF instant. It's the red label. It comes like this in 2-pound packages wrapped in plastic. And then of course the yeast it's brick solid because it is vacuum sealed. Once I break the seal on this and open up the vacuum, then it's very loose. I keep this in my freezer at all times. And so again, I keep enough that we can have a year's supply for making bread. Number 3 on the list is salt. Salt, salt, salt. So important to store salt. We can't live without it, but what kind of salt should we have in our pantry? It's a very controversial subject, and I'm not going to weigh into the arguments. I'm going to just show you a couple of things, and then it's best for each person to do their own research and decide for themselves. So I have regular Morton sea salt fine. This is just our table salt, what we use most of the time. I've recently purchased some pink Himalayan salt, and it's just fine, except I have done a little research and found out where and how they mine this, and I'm not so fond of it anymore. This is Morton iodized salt. Iodine is a big controversy. Should we have this in our salt? Should we not? People from both sides yell, yes we should, or no we shouldn't. My dad always stored iodized salt in times of difficulty, when we don't have our usual foods available for us, when we have to rely on our food storage. Having a little iodine in our salt may be a good thing. I store both. I'm so excited, most excited about this most recent find. This is salt that is mined right here in Utah. I had no clue. I learned this from another YouTuber, I don't know, several weeks ago. And it is naturally occurring salt that has been in these fossilized beds for thousands and thousands of years. And I'll tell you, it is about the best salt I have ever tasted in my life. It is phenomenal. And this is what we are going to be storing in our food storage and using in our pantry, even though we'll use all of these until they're used up. But this is going to be my go-to salt from now on. And I just purchased this right on Amazon. And it is called Redmond, R-E-D-M-O-N-D, real salt. And I do get the real salt. They have it in several other varieties as well. But that's my story on salt. I've got it, I'm going to store it, and it is on our essential list. Item number 4. Item number 4 is sugar. Of course, sugar. We couldn't live without sugar. And so my pantry sugar is again one of these little Cambro 6-quart containers. And when we store sugar, when we buy sugar in bulk, always, always. And generally in our local stores, we can get 25-pound bags in the big box stores like Costco or Sam's Club or Winco. We can even get it in 50-pound bags. And that's how we get it. And then when we bring it home, we simply store it in barrels just like this, dump it right in. This is a food-safe plastic barrel, 5-gallon, with a regular lid. It's not any kind of a fancy lid. And then we do not do a thing to it. Sugar does not oxidize, so you do not need to put in an oxygen absorber. It's highly resistant to any kind of microbes. It is in and of itself a preservative. And so it needs nothing except to be kept free from moisture and light. So storing it in one of these barrels and keeping it in a cool, dark place is all you need to do for sugar. And when we bring a barrel like this in the house, we just simply refill this barrel and we don't ever do anything to the sugar. Beans are number 5, rice is number 6. I have them together for a very important reason. Storing these two foods means that you will have a complete protein. If you serve beans and rice together, that is a complete protein. And you can get by without meat or dairy if that's what your choice is to do. So beans are great, and rice is also great for long-term storage. And we use a lot of them. We are right now featuring some bean recipes as a replacement for meat because meat is so expensive right now. So I buy beans and rice, particularly beans, wherever I can find them and in bulk when I can. My current provider, that is Honeyville Grains out of North Salt Lake, is currently out of almost everything. Once they get back in stock, they are very, very reasonable with shipping especially. And so we usually buy these things in 50-pound bags when we can get them. So I store both long grain and short grain rice and several different kinds of beans. We probably have more pintos stored in our food storage than anything else. But I'm so thrilled to have both some Great Northern and some cannellini, and of course black beans. So I really love experimenting with different varieties of beans. I have other varieties of beans too, but this is just what is in my pantry. Now, how to store them if I am getting them in bulk. Okay, good. Jim just asked if this is a parking lot, and I said, yes, I've diagonally parked right here. So this is a couple of examples of how we store beans and rice. This is rice that we have had since 2002, and we just put it in here. It has it's been perfectly fine. We will do either the dry ice method or the oxygen absorber method with our bulk rice and beans. And these are two examples of the types of the containers that we will use out in our food storage. And then of course, like everything else, when I'm running low, I'll just bring one of these buckets in and then keep it in the house to replenish our pantry containers. 7 and 8 are our leavening agents. We have baking powder and baking soda. Now, this is also bicarbonate of soda. People call it different things. We have recently done a video which has turned out to be extraordinarily popular, blew us completely away. And so I'll put a link to that here because it has many, many, many uses besides food consumption. And so you may want to check that one out as well. We have found that this size works best for us. And we just leave it in the original container. It is vacuum sealed until we're ready to use it. This will have a shelf life, a good shelf life for about a year. And so I don't buy too much ahead of time, but we like to keep a stock of these as well. And of course we have plenty of this baking soda, and I leave it in the original container as well. Then we can just put these original containers right down in a big boxy bin just for convenience, but we don't do anything else in terms of oxygen absorbers or vacuum sealing. So good to have these two in our pantry as well. Number 9 is powdered milk. This is such a staple and something that we're going to want in times where we're having to rely completely on our food storage. I'm finding more and more that I just use it on a daily basis. As you can see, I'm getting quite low on this powdered milk, so time to open up a new can. I have a supply of number 10 cans, commercial, and then also it comes in these little pouches that you can also get. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I am experimenting with milk in our freeze dryer. And so I have decided to try to dehydrate some whole milk, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. And then I also freeze dried some buttermilk. Also, this turned out better than this did, so I'm just delighted to have buttermilk now on our pantry shelf. And then the whole milk, it did not dissolve as easily as the buttermilk did, but I think if I were to have done it in warm water rather than just room temperature water, it would have worked better, and then we could chill it afterward. I would not do this to drink. I mean, I could. Jim and I just don't drink that much milk anymore. But to have it for cooking and that type of thing, it is just perfect. And so it comes, I just buy it in number 10 cans. And those are available in most big box stores. Walmart has it. At least here it does. And then many other stores just have it in the number 10 cans. And they're already vacuum sealed in those cans, so I don't worry about it. And then when I open one of those up, I just dump it right in here. And then powdered milk reconstitutes differently by brand. And so I just put whatever brand I have in here, the directions on how to reconstitute it by a cup or by a quart. And I use this now all the time, so I'm very glad to have this as part of our pantry and part of our food storage. Number 10, eggs, whole eggs. And these, of course, are my freeze-dried eggs. And we've done some in the dehydrator as well, but I do all of mine from here on out in our freeze dryer. You can also buy these in number 10 cans, and I would really recommend that you have plenty of eggs stored for an emergency situation. And so these, again, I use all the time. I've already gone through one jar just like this in the last couple of months, and I use these for baking and all kinds of things. So, and then to store these, this is the only product that when I do it myself, I will use both an oxygen absorber and then vacuum seal. And I do that because that's how the commercial ones are also preserved. So oxygen absorber and vacuum sealing for these in these 2-quart jars. And number 11 is fats, also essential to have stored. So probably the most important one is olive oil. And this is extra virgin olive oil, EVOO. And we use a lot of this, but oil in liquid form is a great form of fat. Some of you are going to absolutely cringe seeing these cans of Crisco out here. That is because Crisco got a really bad rap several years ago because it was filled with partially hydrogenated oils, which translates into trans fats, which are very bad for us. And all of us avoided that. I grew up with Crisco. I loved Crisco. I made the best pie crust ever with Crisco, and then quit using it for quite a few years. I have come back to it because it has no more trans fats, and it is as good as any other hard fat is now. And I really like to have the butter flavor on hand for making certain baked goods. It is really good. Also, this is coconut oil, which at room temperature is solid. We have quite a bit of this in our storage. In our freezer, we keep butter. Jim buys butter on sale all the time, and we keep it out in the freezer. And I have both salted and unsalted, and whatever he brings home, I'm happy to see. In case of a power failure, that would mean that we would have to can everything in our freezer. I would turn the butter into ghee. I have made ghee and have a video on ghee, which is simply butter with the milk solids removed. And so when those milk solids are out of there, there's no more worry about botulism, and it is shelf stable indefinitely. And so I can keep it out there for a year, just like this, no refrigeration. And we have a video that explains this. We use ghee all the time. And so that is pretty much the extent of our fats and how we store them. The last essential item from our pantry today is dehydrated vegetables. I couldn't get along without my dehydrated vegetables. It adds distinction, it adds flavor and texture to a lot of the dishes that we have. And this is just a sampling. This is leeks, spinach, corn, carrots, celery, and onion. And especially these three, onion, celery, and carrots. This is mirepoix, which is French for something or other, I don't remember what, but these three veggies are often used in savory dishes. I have used them and demonstrated this mirepoix many times in our soup recipes, and especially in our dried soups. Having these dried and all dehydrated and ready to go on your shelf is so nice, so that you don't have to run to the store and pick something up. And in case of a grid down situation for long term, these would be such a welcome addition. And so I keep these vacuum sealed. Once we get them in the house and I open them up to use them, then I do not re-vacuum seal them. That concludes the 12 essential items in our pantry from our perspective. So please share some of your essential items that you also have in your pantry. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you at our next video.